Buddy, Bill Faith here from Limo University. It is the first Monday of the new year. Who is totally psyched about that? I would imagine probably not a whole lot of you. It's kind of a weird time to go through Christmas all the way through the New Year's, and with New Year's Eve falling or New Year's Day falling in the middle of the week, last week it kind of just fouls everything else up. I mean, sometimes you probably don't even know what day it is, to be honest with you. And that's why I want to kind of bring you this first live broadcast here. One, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for being in the Limo Growth Group. And just one quick welcome. If you missed my post last night, welcome to Kelly Alderetti and Jason Chernow, our two newest moderators that are going to help Doug Schwartz and Faith and myself moderate the group. So without further ado, I want to kind of get into kind of what today's posts are about. Good morning, Sarah, Mo, Omar, Elias, Dennis. Hopefully you guys are doing well and ready to take on the week. If you guys, when I do these broadcasts, just type in what city you're from. So that way everybody knows that, Mo is from Los Angeles and Elias is from Houston. It's just going to help with you building your brand and letting people know from an affiliate standpoint as they see you with your comments. And that's something that I would recommend doing every time that you engage inside of these groups. Thank you, Omar. Happy New Year to you. Good morning, Chris. So here's the deal. How well do you know your clients? I hope that you have an intimate relationship with them. I hope that you know them very well. This is more than just talking about building the relationship with your clients. You hear me talk a lot and use terms like buyer personas and having an intimate relationship with your client base and really understanding them. And I'm a firm believer that if you have not sat in front of them, if you haven't had dialogue with them, if you haven't broken bread with them, if you aren't asking them the deep questions and just talking shop, just like you guys do with your affiliates when you go to a limo show, then you really probably don't understand your client well enough. And that's really a gap that I'm on a mission to break and to improve for you guys as we move forward into 2020 this year, because that, if you're one of my LabX members, you know that's the foundation of everything that you do. So why would you trust anybody that has not had those intimate relationships with DMCs, event managers, travel managers? It makes absolutely no sense. They don't know what their day-to-day is like. They don't know what they're thinking psychologically when they pick up the phone and call you. They don't really know what's going to inhibit them from buying or selling. And if they don't know that, then how are they going to sell to them? Because at the end of the day, all we're doing is selling. There's really no difference between marketing and sales. It's just happening in a different format. It's happening digitally, online in many cases, or on a billboard. Good morning, Jim. Good morning, Limo Steve. Good morning, Oscar, Jordan, Morgan, Ed Colbert, my main man in Boston. How are you, Keith? How's everything going? For those of you that are just jumping in, Dennis, thank you very much. Happy New Year to you. Hope everything is well in Amsterdam. Just type in the city that you guys are from. This is something I really want to get you guys in the habit of as you're interacting, specifically in our limo groups, because of the fact that there's so many posts that come in here to where people are asking for rates in this city or for affiliates and recommendations. Get people to understand that, you know what, I'm like Nathan from Nashville. I'm Bill from Nashville. Morgan's from Nashville. Jim's from Bakersfield. Ed Colbert's from Boston. LA Classic Limos, I would highly recommend that you interact in these groups as your personal page and not your company page, because people want to do business with people. There we go. Mo from LA. I love it. Anton Karachenko from Detroit. Just type in the city that you're from, so that way you get that brand recognition. Or remember, specifically in the affiliate world, people do business with people, and that's part of today's discussion. They're not doing business with LA Classic Limos. They're not doing business, with, Bill's limo service. They're doing business with Bill. They're doing business with Mo. And that's something that becomes really important for the foundation of how well you know your buyers. So if you're doing any type of marketing or sales, and I believe it's marketing, they're so aligned, there's nothing different. You need to have this really intimate relationship with your buyer personas. So, and this needs to go across to your customer service reps. It needs to go into your marketing department. And you all have a marketing department. You all have customer service reps. Even if you're a 1 or a 2 car company, you are the marketing department. You are the client services rep or the customer service rep. So what happens is we go digging in the wrong areas, or we invest money and we're generating contacts or leads. And this is something that I think becomes really important because the word leads is thrown around our industry a lot. And you got to understand really at the essence of what a lead is. When somebody calls you, when somebody reaches out to you, in my opinion, when there is no qualification, they're just a contact. It's just an inquiry. A lead is something that has qualification behind it. The question becomes is, how intentional do you want that qualification to be? Is it simply clicking on a link on Facebook or in an ad or PPC on Google, whatever that is? For me, if I'm controlling it and I know exactly what my targeting is and I have that intimate relationship with my buyer and I understand their problems, I understand their pain points, I understand what frustrates them on a daily basis. And as an example, do your customer service reps, do the people that handle your marketing, that could be you, that could be, an intern inside of your office, it could be somebody outside of your office, do they understand the biggest frustrations on a day-to-day basis with a DMC when they're vetting a company, when they are in the middle of managing a group on location in any city of any size? It could be 15, it could be 1,500. Because that's the information that you need to become the foundation of your marketing, of your sales. And it needs to resonate through your entire company with everybody that's going to even come close to touching one of your customers, whether it's verbally, whether it's online, whether it's on social media, whether it's in paid advertising, whatever that is. The ones that understand that are going to win, I promise you. Because when you just have these generic social media posts or these generic Google ads or generic emails that are going out that are produced in mass, you're really not going to attract the client base that you want to build as the core of your company. And it wastes your time. So it becomes way more expensive for you to have to manage these inquiries, these phone calls, these emails, these completions on your contact us forms, whatever it is, that aren't really leads. They're just contacts. They're just inquiries. They're not qualified. So that's why I believe, and what I did is I did all of my own marketing to build my company. I hired and trained my own salespeople. I got mentorship and leadership to teach me how to do all of that type of stuff before I started the limousine company. And then when I was an operator, and I see a lot of the successful companies, and I want you guys to understand, especially the smaller and medium-sized operators that are out there, understand that the large companies, typically in our industry, the larger the company, the less that they spend in online marketing. It's the smaller companies that overinvest into online marketing, and they're not investing to branding, relationship building, and offline sales, which is the number one reason why companies grow inside of our industry. I will dispel anybody else that claims anything different. And that's one thing that I think people, hey, Anton, hey, Bart, how are you? Something that I think people get wrong a lot, especially because it's so hard to get out from behind the wheel and driving. It's so hard to get out from behind like the screen that I'm behind right now from a dispatching standpoint and focus on those revenue generating activities. So what becomes really important is that you become a scout. And here's what I mean by this. Very simply, if you think about what is a football scout, a baseball scout, basketball, soccer, whatever, what does a scout in athletics do? They are watching how a player, if they're a player development scout, they're watching how a player does what I just said, how they develop. They're not watching the ball. They're not watching the game like you and I do as fans. They are learning. They are taking notes because they have to go back and they have to train, teach, or educate the decision makers, the general managers, the coaches, the ownership. It could be the coach at a collegiate level. A scout is taking a deep dive into the understanding. And you think about if any of you have had children, or if you went through the recruiting process in high school to become a collegiate athlete as I've done, as Kevin Illingsworth, if you know Kevin at Classique in Los Angeles, how his daughter has recently gone through. It is a process as an athlete. And now as a parent, I look back and think about what my mother went through when I went through this. And I had, I don't even know, 56, almost every university with the exception of USC, because I told them I had no desire to go. I ultimately ended up going to UCLA. But I was the third-ranked player in the world coming out of high school. Third-ranked player in the world coming out of high school. And every time I would go to a tournament, there would be a swarm of either scouts from larger universities. So they had scouts. I kind of equate that to the larger companies you're competing with a sales team, to the smaller universities. So as an example, UCLA, where I ultimately ended up going, had a scout. Pepperdine, which was number 3 on my list, behind Fresno State, which was number 1. And actually, that's a whole nother story. Why was Fresno State number 1? I went to UCLA. But then like Arizona State had a scout and Arizona did not. So the thing that becomes important is that you and I as business owners always need to be a scout. And this needs to happen with our employees. We need to watch them. We need to understand them. We need to make sure that they are running the plays that you have developed for them. And you need to look at the psychology of how they are interacting with those plays. And that could be the scripts that they're using on the phone. Because I do not believe that it is a sales script. I believe you have to qualify. I think you have to build rapport very, very quickly. I think you have to earn trust. And then you have to create value. And if you go through those 4 things, then price does not become an issue. But if you don't train your customer service reps, and that, once again, that may be you, to be able to execute on that, then how are you going to train somebody in the outside sales field or the marketing field to be able to do that for you? Because if they don't have the experience of sitting down and working with and having deep conversations with the core buyers that you're trying to acquire, then you're not making the best investment into your time and your money. And that's really what I want to change for you. So I want you to think about a couple of things. Let's just use, DMC Donna really quick. Kind of go through an exercise. I want you to write down or really think and take a second. What's the number 1 problem that DMC Donna has? And same for event manager Mary. Anybody that's managing like a corporate event, a meeting, a conference, a show, anything like that. What's the number 1 problem that they have? And if anybody that's on here is bold enough, type it into a comment. What's their biggest issue when they call you? And it's not price. I'm going to give you that one. It is not price. It's communication. Communication is the number 1 problem that we see in information coming back from you as the current owners in the industry, from my experience being an owner, from my experience serving on a board of a local MPI, Meeting Professionals International Association, attending 4 WECs, that's World Education Conference, having a lot of dialogue with local and national meeting planners and DMCs to build out and educate myself so I can better serve you, and working with some of the largest companies in our industry. That is their biggest issue. So if communication is their biggest problem, and what I want you to understand, what around that can you do better than your competition? Well, you have to know what they feel is negative with the previous providers that they've worked with. And the only way that you can understand that is to have dialogue with them. So now let's sit back and let's think about this for a second. Does your marketing agency have that dialogue with the meeting planner? Probably not. Have your customer service reps had that dialogue with a meeting planner? Probably not. Has your sales reps had that dialogue with a meeting planner? Probably not. You need to be the one to have that dialogue. And that's as simple as going to your next MPI meeting. And, I'm sure you have relationships in MPI or LE or whatever that is, or DMCs that you work with, event planners, and sitting them down and creating a focus group. And it can just be a focus group of you and one other person. But remember, a focus group and one person's perspective doesn't shape an entire industry. You've got to get as much perspective as you can. So let's move on. If number 1 is communication, what do you believe number 2 is? I'll have another drink of water. Think about that for a second. And before anybody chimes in and asks where my Diet Coke is, I've given up Diet Coke. I'm on day number 3, actually, 4. What's today? The 6th? Day number 4. I started on the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. Yeah, today's day number 4. Started on the 3rd when I got back from Dallas. And I'm running 1,000 miles in 2020. Those are my 2 goals. I don't like New Year's resolutions. So back to meeting professionals, meeting planners, event planners, DMCs. What's the second biggest problem? The second biggest frustration that they have? And before I answer that question, I want you to understand, number 1 is communication. Not saying you are poor at communication. But what I really want to emphasize is that you have to have solutions to the communication gap that's been created by the other operators that DMC, that event manager, that meeting planner has worked with. See where I'm going here? That's what should be in your ad copy. That's what you should be focusing on in your social media. That's what should be in your email marketing, segmented out to your DMCs and your MPI members. Not just this general information about your vehicles, because that's not the most important thing to them. Is it important? Yes, but it's not the most, because that's about their client. They are more worried about themselves, just like you're worried about yourself when you make decisions when you're going to buy. And number 2 problem for them is manifest management. So one of the biggest hurdles that we have to get over, and it goes back into communication, poor communication rolls over into manifest management, but manifest management, you hear me talk a lot about pre-trip, post-trip, and then the in-car experience. And I believe pre-trip and post-trip is way more important than the in-car experience. And people that just do, airport transfers or whatever think I'm crazy. But the communication starts from the first point of contact all the way through to the last invoice, and then nurturing that relationship to get that group again next year in your town, or to start traveling with them. And that groundwork is all laid in the pre-trip. So manifest management isn't just how you manage the arrivals and the departures. It starts with that communication as being pain point number 1, flowing over into the manifest management about saying, oh yeah, hey, we'll get that manifest turned around to you today, and then it's tomorrow. Or the quality control aspect of it. How many of you are using auto upload through add-ons or Limo Anywhere or Livery Coach or whatever it is, to where you never manually enter a reservation into your system? Because if you do, and manifest management's a pain point, and there's lots of components to that, then I would be leveraging that we are hands off. We don't make human error in our data entry. So if you give us a clean manifest, it automatically uploads into our system, and we'll get it back to you in X amount of time. Now, if you can get it back same day, I would say 48 hours and then deliver it same day. Don't say same day like the misrepresentation of dispatch. The car is 5 minutes out and it's really 20. If the car's 20 minutes out, tell them it's 30 and get there in 15. Once again, that ties back into poor communication. But manifest management is also the final manifest when we're done. It's about how we're going to manage when we're on location. That also ties into the on location and the transition logistics management. But hopefully what you're seeing here is a trend to where when you go from communication gaps, and that's pain point number 1, frustration number 1 for, pretty much travel manager, executive admin, and also DMC. But we're talking about DMC. Then you go into manifest management, and that ties into transition. Because transition is where we make the majority of our mistakes. And transition could be pick up and drop off in an airport, because I'm transitioning as the passenger from air to ground, or from hotel into vehicle to office, then from office to vehicle to airport. And with what's happened with our construction nationally and globally, when I was in the business, which hasn't been that long ago, when I was an owner just like you, we didn't have hotels in Nashville. There was not one that I could think of that had multiple entrances and exits, like on different streets or different blocks. Now, because of the influx here, I'm not going to say it's as bad as New York and San Francisco, which are very, very tough in that regard. So one, if I'm staying at a hotel now in downtown Nashville, we've really got to make sure that we're dialing into which door or which street. One, I need to be a scout. I've got to know that. I've got to know the hotels It can't just be, yeah, we'll pick you up at the front entrance, because the front entrance to me may be different than the front entrance to you. That's why we've got to observe. We really got to dig deep. We've got to pay attention, because everything, my friends, from your website copy to what you post onto social media, to your email marketing, to what goes into your pamphlets, your brochures, your sales presentations, your ads, whether they're on billboards or it's Google ads or it's Facebook ads. This is the deep, rich stuff that I talk about, having that intimate relationship with your customer. That's why I need you to be a scout, and I need you to scout your sales and marketing. I need you to scout your customer service reps, because that's your sales team. I need you to scout yourself and really, truly look introspectively and figure out how well you really know your client base. The last part of this is when you scout, typically when a scout goes to a game, they spend about 85% of their time there for one person, maybe two. And they are honed in on them. The extra 15% is really looking at everybody else on the field to see if they can find that diamond in the rough. But what they're not doing with any percent of their time is really watching the game the way that you and I watch the game, the way that you and I watched the Titans and Patriots game, or the Eagles and the Seahawks game. Scouts are looking at it differently. They're watching plays develop. They're watching individuals. They're watching their body language in the huddles. They're watching how they interact with their teammates on the sidelines. They're looking at everything. The one thing that I can promise you is that if you become a scout, you're going to have a competitive advantage, because most are not going to put in this work. If you decide to become a scout, let me know, because I definitely can help you down this path. And I don't mean this arrogantly, but I think I know your buyers better than anybody in this industry, because of the research that I've done, because I've sat in your chair. I've traveled with groups. I traveled with Philips Healthcare and St. Jude Medical all over the country. They were doing between 35 to 50 meetings for their doctors and device trainings a year. I've done groups I did the second New Year's Eve bash that we had here in Nashville with 100,000 people. I've done groups of up to 5,000. I've done groups of 10. I've done road shows. But most importantly, from the time that I've exited being an owner, I've invested into learning from every one of them, from the presidents of MPI and going to WEC and doing these forums. You need to do the same. I can speed up that process for you. Not going to sell you anything. That's not what I'm here for today. But you've got to figure out what path you're going to go to really understand them, because now the last thing I want you to do is to look at the last email you sent to your customers. Look at the last week of your social media posts. Look at your ads that are running on any platform. And then take a look at your website. Have you been a good scout? How valuable is your information? If you call your strongest confidant inside of MPI, your local association, and ask him or her to spend 5 minutes going over your website or just your meetings and events page and asking them on a scale of 1 to 10, how valuable is that page? Would that make you want to buy? Are you confident that their response is going to be a 10? The same with travel managers. The same with me. I've gone from being an owner like you to where I'm Business Travel Bill today. And Business Travel Bill is just a guy that spends $10 to maybe $20,000 or $30,000 a year in ground transportation. I do my own booking. I'm always a passenger. Well, not always, but the majority of the time. And I have a couple of small events. I've done transportation in 2019 for 5 or 6 events. And I travel all over the place. So I've got a companion pass on Southwest and hundreds of thousands of miles on my Amex. Just because I'm always in and out of airports. How well do you know what my biggest pain points are and what's going to impact my decision-making process? Because if you want to acquire my business, if you want to acquire DMC Donna's business and you don't want to have to haggle over price, then you need to know that information. I got to get ready for my coaching calls today. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. I'm here to serve you. I want to help. And those of you that are just joining, like Barry Gross, one of the foremost experts in the motor coach industry, in the motor coach side of our industry, just let me know, leave a comment down below. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you for being here today.